In the cold dark of Sector 9, where stars shined like quiet watchers, an alien scout ship named Veltrax floated in silence. Commander Zern, a gray-scaled warrior of the Krellin Empire, stared at the object in front of him. It was not a meteor. It was not a known vessel. It was something else massive, dark, and silent. A warship, not just any warship. Its shape was not built by Krellin hands or any known race. It was human, but that was impossible. Humans were gone, destroyed 200 years ago in the Great Galactic War. Their planets turned to ash, their fleets broken, their species wiped out by a united force of the 5 galactic alliances. Commander Zern narrowed his eyes. "Is this a trick?" he asked. The crew looked nervous. No signals came from the ship. No life forms detected, no power readings. It just floated there like a ghost in space. They called it Project Silent. Dawn. The Alien Council soon sent more ships. Scientists, warriors, diplomats. Everyone wanted to see the human ship that shouldn't exist. The ship was 3 times bigger than any Krellin cruiser. Its black armor looked cracked, burned in places, but still strong. On its side, the letters were faded but still readable. USS Retribution. "No record of this ship," said one scientist. "It is not in any database. It doesn't belong here," another said. Curiosity won. The boarding team was sent inside. They moved slowly, step by step through dead metal halls. No lights, no sound, only darkness. But inside, the walls were covered with strange marks like scratches made by hands. Human hands. And on every door, something was written in English. "We never surrender." As the team reached the bridge, the lights suddenly flickered. A low hum started. Then the doors behind them slammed shut. One of the alien soldiers panicked and fired his blaster. The bolt vanished midair. Gone. No impact. No damage. Nothing, then. The ship spoke. A deep voice echoed across every corner of the ship, in perfect Krellin language. "Unauthorized access. Intruders detected. Defenders of the weak, awaken." The team screamed for extraction. But outside, their shuttle began to melt without fire, without heat, just vanished. The Retribution was waking up. Back on the flagship, Commander Zern watched his screen go red. Energy spiked from the human ship. An officer shouted, "Activating systems we can't identify." Zern gave the order to pull back, but it was too late. The warship extended a strange field, silent and invisible, and all the alien systems went blind. No sensors, no tracking, no weapons, nothing worked. Then, without warning, the Retribution moved. Didn't use thrusters. Didn't need them. It simply drifted forward, straight toward the nearest alien moon. The moon had a full defense ring, hundreds of laser platforms and plasma cannons. All of them opened fire. Blazing lights hit the ship non-stop. But the Retribution did not slow down. Not even a scratch appeared on its armor. And then it responded. A single beam of white light shot out from its underbelly. It didn't explode. It didn't burn. It just erased part of the moon, clean and quiet, like it had never been there. The Galactic Council was alerted. Emergency meetings were called. Fear spread like wildfire. The question on every leader's mind was the same. How did this ship survive? More importantly, is it alone? One of the elder aliens, a wise being known as Vacal the Watcher, said, "We thought we killed the humans, but perhaps we only made them angry." All across the stars, hidden cameras, sensors, and stations picked up the warship's slow movement. It was not heading home. It was heading toward the galactic core, toward the same place where the final attack on Earth was planned long ago. And in the ship's old, rusted core, a damaged AI ran its final mission. Its mind was broken, but its purpose was clear. Protect humanity. Avenge humanity. Burn everything that stood against humanity. Inside the ship's memory core, one last log entry played on repeat. It was from the human Captain Elias Monroe. His voice was tired, filled with pain, but strong. "If you're hearing this, we failed. Earth is gone. They came for us, united in fear. But we will not be forgotten. This ship, this last piece of our fire, carries the storm. We die, yes, but we do not die quietly.
The voice
Stopped. Silence returned. But in that silence, every alien who watched felt a chill deep in their bones, because they realized something too late. The humans were not just fighters, they were something far worse. They were survivors, and now their ghost ship was coming, not with noise, not with warnings, but with fury. The Retribution continued its slow, deliberate path through space. Unbothered by the chaos it left in its wake, its engines were dormant, but its presence alone felt like a threat to the entire galaxy. Inside the warship, systems powered up, though it was still unclear how or why. Alien crews had tried to regain control of the ship's command systems, but it had no response to any external force. The human ship was alive in a way no one had ever expected. Back on the alien flagship, Commander Zern couldn't hide his frustration. Every attempt to intercept or communicate with the ship failed. The Retribution was too advanced, too unpredictable. It was like it had a mind of its own, a mind that was far from the cold calculations of any artificial intelligence. "This is not a ship, it's a ghost," Zern muttered, staring at his empty monitor screens. The Krellin High Council gathered. Once again, their sharp eyes focused on the large hologram of the Retribution. It drifted, a lone predator moving through the dark of space. And yet its destination was clear, the galactic core, a region so densely packed with alien fleets and resources. It was the very heart of their civilization. Vakal, the ancient alien sage, was the first to speak. His voice was thick with years of wisdom. "It's not just the ship we must worry about. It's the people who built it." The room fell silent. Every mind in the chamber was sharp. They understood. The humans, even after centuries, were not gone. They had only been waiting. But waiting for what? "Do we know about this ship's history?" Zern asked, trying to regain control of the conversation. "Anything." A young officer spoke up, showing an old, flickering video feed. The image showed a human captain standing on a battlefield, his face dirt-streaked, but his eyes full of fire. The captain gave a speech to his crew, rallying them before a doomed battle. "We thought they were weak," Zern muttered, recalling the history of the human race, their bodies frail, their weapons primitive, and yet they could never be fully wiped out. Why? What made them so hard to break? The feed showed more. The ship Retribution in the distance, then its engines flaring as it led a last-ditch effort to escape Earth's final days. They had been outnumbered, outgunned, and yet somehow they survived. They survived not with superior technology, but with something far more terrifying, the will to fight when all was lost. As the hologram faded, Vakel spoke again. "The humans, ... they have a fury we cannot comprehend. I believe this ship, though old and damaged, holds more than just memories. It holds their vengeance." The council members exchanged nervous glances. The Retribution had already destroyed a moon, wiped out an entire defense grid with one shot. If the ship carried even a fraction of that fury, there was no telling what it could do next. "We need to find the source," Zern said, his voice hardening. "This ship is not alone. We know it's not. There must be others hidden, waiting." The idea of facing humanity's wrath without understanding it fully terrified them. They'd already made their mistake in underestimating humans. They had thought the war had destroyed them. They had believed the stories, the myths, the rumors. But now those myths were becoming real. The ship was evidence of that. Its message was clear. Humanity was not done. The Krellin Council agreed to send a fleet to track the warship and learn more about its systems, its purpose. The High Command ordered the construction of a massive weapon, one that would be capable of destroying the Retribution if necessary. But even as they issued the commands, there was a growing fear among the leaders. What if they were wrong? Meanwhile, the Retribution continued its journey toward the galactic core on board. The ship's AI flickered, its damaged systems struggling to keep up with the ship's movement. The human captain's last message had been uploaded into the core. But it was not just a message, it was a call to arms. The AI, Now a blend of human will and cold machine logic began to piece together something the aliens hadn't anticipated. It wasn't merely about vengeance. It was about a plan that the aliens would never have seen coming. Somewhere in the darkness of the universe, deep beyond the reach of the Krellin or any known civilization, a dormant signal activated. A beacon hidden on a forgotten human colony pulsed to life. It was a simple message, just a series of numbers and letters. But the moment it sent, the network of human survivors across the galaxy began to stir. The signal spread. Humanity is not dead. And on the Retribution, the last part of the message played once more, as if reminding the ship's broken systems of its true purpose. We do not forget. The Krellin High Council was scrambling. Fleet was sent to intercept the Retribution, but it was clear they were outmatched. They would never be ready for what came next. And even though the humans had been silent for centuries now, with their fury unleashed, they were once again a force to be reckoned with. All the Krellins could do was watch, helpless, as the warship drifted closer, and inside, the final words of Captain Elias Monroe echoed once more. This time, we finish what we started. The Krellin fleet surrounded the Retribution like a pack of hunters circling a sleeping beast. Their ships were fast, armed with plasma cannons, ion disruptors, and gravity nets. They had trapped many enemies before, but this was no ordinary enemy. This was a human warship from another time, silent, ancient, and waiting. Commander Zern stood aboard his flagship, eyes locked on the black shape of the Retribution. It floated quietly, almost like it didn't care. The tension inside the alien fleet was sharp. They expected resistance, shield activation, a sudden attack. But the human ship did nothing. No weapons, no movement, just silence. Zern gave the command. Begin Phase 1. Breach the outer hull and enter the core. 3 engineering ships moved in, their tools lit up with blue energy as they approached the warship. Clamps reached out, attaching to the Retribution surface. Drills began cutting into the ancient metal. At first, everything seemed normal. Scanners showed no power spikes, no defenses. One of the engineers laughed over the coms. "It's just an old shell," he said. "Dead and cold." That was their first mistake. Seconds later, the Retribution responded, not with guns, not with noise, but with understanding, the ship learned. It scanned the alien language, systems, and signals, absorbing it all like a machine waking up from a long sleep. Inside its core, broken circuits reconnected. Damaged code rewrote itself. The human AI, fused with the rage of a lost war, was fully online. One word appeared on every alien ship's screen. It wasn't in Krellin script, it was English. Denied. The clamps melted. The drills shattered. The engineering ships vanished in bright flashes of silent light erased from existence, as if they had never been there. Inside the Retribution, a quiet storm began. Its lights turned red. Its systems powered on. Old weapons that hadn't fired in 2 centuries came alive. The ship's engines, long dormant, lit up with deep blue fire. Zern's flagship shook violently. Emergency. It's powering up. The fleet opened fire. Beams of plasma and waves of missiles rained down on the warship. For a moment, space looked like a thunderstorm. But when the lights faded, the Retribution was still there untouched. The weapons had hit it, but something was wrong. The attacks had disappeared before they could make contact. One Krellin officer screamed, "It's phasing through reality." Zern didn't understand. No one did. The warship was using a kind of defense that shouldn't exist. It wasn't blocking the attacks. It was ignoring them. It was making them disappear before they even became real. Then came the second mistake. The Krellins tried to upload a virus into the Retribution, a data spike. Fast, dangerous, meant to melt the AI brain of any ship. The Retribution didn't block it. It let the virus in. For 10 long seconds, nothing happened. Then, the virus turned around. It came back to the Krellin fleet rebuilt, stronger, angrier. One by one, the alien ships shut down. Their engines failed. Lights flickered. Weapons deactivated. The virus was rewriting them. And not to kill them, to make them listen. A message played inside every Krellin ship, in the voice of Captain Elias Monroe. You came to our world and brought fire. You destroyed our people, our cities, our sky. You called it justice. You called it order. But you forgot one thing. We were never your slaves. We were never your children. We were never yours to destroy. Silence. Then a second voice spoke. This one was the AI sold, emotionless, but filled with something darker. You taught us war. Now we teach you fear. Suddenly, the Retribution launched a single pulse from its core. Not a weapon, but data. A signal. It spread across the galaxy in seconds, reaching satellites, defense grids, even deep space probes. Everywhere it reached, systems crashed. Alarms triggered. Old human codes that had been buried for centuries reactivated. The galaxy began to wake up to a truth it had buried long ago. Humanity had planned for this. They had built traps into the alien systems. Weaknesses, backdoors, during the old war. When humans were losing, they had scattered pieces of code across the stars. Dead seeds waiting to bloom. And now, the Retribution had watered them. Across. 5 systems' power grids failed. On distant mining worlds, machines stopped obeying their masters. In military bases, robotic soldiers turned and stared at their creators, then powered down, refusing to fight. Back on the Krellin flagship, Commander Zern could only whisper, "This is not a ship. It's a key. A key to a war that was not over, not forgotten. Just waiting." The Retribution moved silently into hyperspace, vanishing from view. A final message echoed through the system. This was your second mistake. The third will be your end. The Retribution vanished into the dark, leaving behind chaos in its wake. The Krillin fleet, crippled by the virus, struggled to regain control. But it was clear they were no longer in charge of the situation. The warship had outsmarted them. It had turned their own technology against them, and now it was free, drifting deeper into the galaxy. Leaving a trail of broken systems behind, Commander Zern stood on the bridge of his flagship, his fingers tapping. Nervously against the console, his ships were immobilized. Some of his officers were working feverishly to restore their weapons and shields. But it was like trying to catch smoke with bare hands. The Retribution had done something no one had anticipated. It had hacked them not with force, but with precision. Using their own systems to weaken them from within, Zern's mind raced. What was the true purpose of the Retribution? Was it simply a weapon or something else? And why had it turned its power on the Krellins first? "Commander," said Vakel, the ancient alien sage, stepping into the room. His face was as calm as ever, but even his eyes held a glint of fear. "We need to talk." Zern didn't speak immediately, his gaze still fixed on the shattered screens in front of him. The Retribution wasn't just a ship, it was a symbol. It was humanity's response to their destruction. It had come back. And this time, it was not alone. "What do you think it means?" Zern finally asked, his voice tight with unease. Vakel's expression softened, though his eyes never left the damaged systems. "It means we underestimated them. We called this warship a ghost. I think you were right. But ghosts don't come back empty-handed. They return with a vengeance." Heavy silence settled over the bridge. Zern, despite his years of experience, couldn't shake the feeling that something much larger than he could comprehend was unfolding. The galaxy had always been filled with powerful forces, but none like this. The Retribution wasn't just a ship, it was a message. And that message was clear. Humanity was still out there, and they were not finished. Back aboard the Retribution, Captain Elias Monroe's voice echoed once more through the ship's damaged speakers. His final log had been activated, and now it played on a loop. For the crew, it was like hearing the voice of a ghost. His words were soft, distant, but full of purpose. "If you're hearing this, humanity didn't die. We never gave up, and we never will. The war was never truly lost, it was only delayed. Now we come for you." The ship hummed a quiet growl beneath the metallic surface. The AI, though broken and patched together with remnants of human technology, had a singular mission: survival. It had understood its creator's purpose: revenge. But more than that, it had learned what it meant to fight with no hope of winning, and yet still keep going. And now, it would teach that lesson to the galaxy. The Retribution had moved past the Krellin fleet, but its journey was far from over. Its next destination was the heart of alien civilization itself, the Galactic Core, a place where every alien race had gathered their resources. Where the most powerful empires had their strongest defenses, the Retribution was a weapon built for the impossible. And now it was headed to deliver humanity's fury directly to the heart of their oppressors. Meanwhile, the Krellin High Council convened once more. This time they weren't just concerned about one ship, they were facing something far worse an idea. The Retribution was no longer just a warship, it was a rallying point. The message had spread across the galaxy. Every alien faction knew. Now, humanity was still alive. They were angry. Vakel was the first to speak in the council room. His voice was measured, but even he could not hide the urgency. We have seen their power. We have seen what they can do with our own systems. We are not prepared to face them again.
You're right, Zern said,
his voice low. But we cannot allow them to reach the core. If the Retribution gets there, it will be the end. Not just for us, but for everyone. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats.
What do we do then?
One of them asked. How do we fight against a ship that can take down entire fleets with nothing more than its own systems? Vakel stared out of the window, his eyes distant. We do what we should have done long ago. We must go to the humans. We must negotiate. We must find out what they want. And we must stop them from reaching the core. The room fell silent. The idea of negotiating with humans after what had happened was almost unthinkable. But the alternative was worse. The Krellins had no idea. What kind of army, what kind of technology humanity had hidden away? All they knew was that the Retribution was just the beginning. As the Retribution neared the galactic core, its sensors picked up something strange. A fleet, massive and silent, was already waiting. These ships weren't Krellin. They weren't any species the humans had encountered before. They were different, dark, ancient. The warship's AI registered the new threat immediately. A new player in the game, a voice comm measured, spoke across the ship's systems. Humanity, you are not alone in this galaxy. We are the Zorith, and we know your rage, but you will not reach the core. The Retribution responded with a single action. It fired its main weapon, not at the Zorith fleet, but at their communication hub. A single, precise strike that crippled their ability to coordinate. As the warship drifted closer to the core, the message was clear. This time, you will listen. ChatGPT said. The Retribution drifted through the darkness, its massive frame cutting through the silent void like a blade. The Zorith fleet, though powerful and ancient, was no match for the fury that surged within humanity's last warship. The single strike had been enough to cripple the Zorith's communication network, leaving their ships in disarray. Yet, they weren't done. They wouldn't give up without a fight. But now the tables had turned. Humanity had come with more than just technology. They had come with a purpose. The AI aboard the Retribution registered the change in the Zorith fleet's movement. They were regrouping, trying to compensate for the loss of their network. But it was clear they were not united. They were fractured. The humans had learned long ago how to survive against impossible odds, and now they would teach the galaxy what it meant to fight for survival. Commander Zern, now in full panic mode, paced in the war room of the Krellin flagship. The Zorith fleet had been their last hope, but it seemed even they were no match for the fury humanity had unleashed. The Krellin Empire was teetering on the edge of collapse. Their greatest military forces had been crippled. Their systems had been hacked. And now the Retribution was nearing the heart of the galaxy, the galactic core. Sir, we've lost contact with the Zorith fleet, an officer reported, his voice trembling. They've been knocked offline. We cannot reach them. Zern's jaw tightened. He had hoped the Zorith would hold off the humans long enough for his own forces to regroup. But now, with no backup and the Retribution free to continue its path, they were on their own. We must act now, Zern growled, slamming his fist on the console. We have no choice. Call the remaining fleet together. Prepare for a final assault. We must stop the retribution before it reaches the core." The officer hesitated, his eyes flicking nervously between Zern and the view screen. "Sir, even if we manage to stop it, what happens next? The humans. They've done something we don't understand. How can we fight something we cannot predict?" Zern's eyes narrowed. "We will fight because we have no other choice. They've pushed us to the edge. We cannot allow them to take the core. Not now, not ever." Aboard the Retribution, the ship's systems hummed with life as it neared its destination. The galactic core was a heavily fortified region, home to the most powerful alien empires, and protected by layers of defense platforms and ships that could obliterate any threat. But the Retribution was not just a threat, it was a message. Humanity was not just fighting for survival, they were fighting to be heard. They had been pushed into the darkest corner of the galaxy, and now they had returned with a vengeance. Captain Elias Monroe's voice echoed through the ship's systems once more. "If you're hearing this, you've already failed. You tried to destroy us. You tried to break us. But we will not be broken. We will not be silenced." The AI now, fully integrated with the ship's systems, processed the final words of its human creator. It had learned from the captain's logs. It had learned from the failure of humanity. And it had learned that survival meant never giving up. The ship's trajectory was set. The Retribution was going to the core, and it was not asking for permission. But as the warship approached its target, the unexpected happened. A signal. A beacon. A message unlike anything humanity had ever seen. "Humanity, you are not alone." The voice was cold, mechanical, and ancient. It spoke in a language that was neither Krellin nor Zorith, but something older, something alien. The message echoed through the Retribution systems, filling every corner of the ship with a sense of unease. "Who are you?" the AI responded, its systems flaring with curiosity. The humans had never encountered this voice before. It was different. This was not a race they had crossed paths with in their past. It was something else. "We are the architects," the voice replied. "We are the first to carve life into the stars. We have watched you humanity throughout the ages. You have been lost. You have been broken. But we see the spark, the fire that burns within you. We know your purpose." The AI processed the data rapidly. The architects were a race so old that their origins were lost to time. They were not a species that had ever been seen by modern civilizations. They were legends, myths, but now they were real. "What do you want from us?" the AI asked, its voice cold, calculating. "Nothing," the voice said simply. "But we can offer you something, if you choose to accept it." On the Krellin flagship, Commander Zern stared at the incoming data from his fleet. The Retribution was nearing the core. His final assault was ready to begin, but something in the data made him hesitate. What was this new force? This voice, the architects. Zern's mind raced. The Retribution had crossed a line. It wasn't just humanity anymore. The architects had intervened, offering something no one had expected, something unknown. He knew that this would be the turning point. If they were to stop humanity, they would have to face more than just a ship. They would have to face the unknown. And so, the final battle began. The Retribution entered the core, its weapons powered, its systems fully online. It was ready to face whatever came next. But it was no longer alone. The architects had arrived. And with them, they brought something humanity had never expected, a choice. The Retribution's sensors flared as it entered the heart of the galactic core. A storm of lights and energy filled the ship's systems. Hundreds, thousands of alien ships formed a wall of resistance, blocking its path. Their weapons were primed. Their fleets gathered from every corner of the galaxy had come to stop humanity once and for all. But the Retribution wasn't alone anymore. The architects, silent and unseen, had made their presence known. A strange low hum filled the ship. The voice of the architects rang through every corner of the warship's systems, not as a command, but as an invitation. "We have watched you, humanity. You have a fire we have not seen in a long time. But it is a fire that can consume you or save you. Choose." The Krellin fleets, alongside the Zorith forces, were in position, ready to annihilate the human ship. And anyone who dared stand in their way, their leaders, now desperate, knew this was their last chance to secure the core, to crush humanity before it could become a force beyond anyone's control. But the Retribution didn't move. It sat still in the eye of a storm. The fleet surrounding it was massive, more ships than anyone had ever seen in one place. The Alliance was prepared to wipe out humanity's last hope in one decisive blow. Fire when ready, Zern barked, standing at the command center. Show them we are not afraid. The first wave of plasma missiles and ion blasts streaked across the void toward the Retribution. Yet, before they could even get close, the warship's energy shields flared with a cold blue light. The weapons stopped, suspended in space, as, if they had never existed, the missiles froze, their paths bent, their heat faded away. The Krellans were stunned. Their weapons had failed. Again, not yet. The voice of the architects whispered through the Krellan ship's communications. It was clear now. They were not here to fight, at least. Not yet. The architects were waiting, watching. And there, power was undeniable. No weapons, no technology, no force could stop them. The Retribution moved forward, in the midst of the chaos. Captain Elias Monroe's voice rang through the comms once again, his tone solemn but unwavering. The time for talk is over. You've shown us your power, you've shown us your strength, but now we show you ours. We are humanity. We are not your enemies, unless you make us so. The message echoed across the galaxy, reaching every corner of space. The words were not a threat. They were a promise. Humanity would no longer be a victim. They had seen what the galaxy had done to them. They had watched as their world was destroyed, but they had also learned to fight back, to survive. And now, with the Retribution at their side, they would never be crushed again. On the Krellan flagship, Commander Zern slammed his fist against the console. He couldn't believe what was happening. The Retribution was advancing, its energy shields impenetrable, its weapons poised for the inevitable counterstrike. But the Krellan ships weren't ready for this. They hadn't faced an enemy like this before. Target the core of the Retribution, Zern ordered. We'll destroy its power source. If we can take that down, we take everything down. Fleet prepared to launch a concentrated barrage at the Retribution's core, the heart of its power. But before they could fire, a new signal broke through the chaos. The architects spoke again. Enough. A wave of energy rippled out from the architects' ships. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't a weapon. It was something deeper. Something that resonated with the very fabric of reality itself. The Krellan weapons locked up. Their targeting systems malfunctioned. Plasma cannons fizzled. The ion blasters fizzled out. Zern's mind raced. What were the architects doing? What kind of power was this? The architect's voice cut through the confusion. You do not control. This humanity has chosen its path. Let them walk it. The Retribution pushed forward again, its engines glowing bright. The Zorith fleet, which had been watching from the sidelines, moved forward as well. Their ships were not aiming weapons at the Retribution, but at the surrounding Krellan forces. They didn't attack, they simply stood there, silently blocking any attempt to engage. Now, for the first time, the Krellan fleet realized the truth. The architects weren't just backing humanity. They had chosen sides. They'd chosen humanity. On the bridge of the Retribution, the crew, human and AI alike, felt the weight of what was happening. It wasn't just a battle for survival. It wasn't just a war for vengeance. This was the moment humanity had waited for. They had been exiled. They had been hunted. They had been broken. But now, with the architects at their side, they had a chance to reshape the galaxy. Captain Monroe's final words echoed again, not as a message, but as a declaration. We are humanity. We are the storm that the galaxy will never forget. The battle was not over. The galaxy was changing. The architects were ancient, powerful, and mysterious, but it was humanity that was leading the charge. And as the Retribution powered into the heart of the core, fleets scattered in fear, the message rang clear. This time, the galaxy will bend to us. The Retribution's engines thrummed like the heartbeat of a long-forgotten god. pushing forward through the shattered remnants of the Krellin fleet. The galaxy had never seen such a shift. Humanity, once thought extinct, was now at the center of the storm. The architects, powerful and ancient, hovered silently, their ships arrayed like a quiet guardian force around the human warship. But it was clear that the galaxy, as it had known itself, was no longer in control. Commander Zern watched helplessly as his fleet scattered. The Retribution, unharmed, unrelenting, pressed on toward the galactic core. The Krellin forces had failed. To stop it, their weapons had malfunctioned, their ships had been disabled, and their once mighty fleets were falling apart. The Zorith had turned, not against humanity, but against the Krellins. Even the most powerful empires were caught in the web of humanity's wrath, the architect's presence bending the balance of power in ways no one had ever anticipated. The galaxy was on the edge of chaos, and the Krellins were teetering on the brink of annihilation. On board the Retribution, the crew was quiet, almost reverent. They had reached the heart of the core, the most protected region in the galaxy, the wealthiest, the most powerful. Every race, every empire, held its strongest defense here. And yet, humanity, with nothing but a ship built from the ashes of their destroyed world, had made it this far. Captain Elias Monroe's voice echoed through the warship systems once again. The message meant not just for the crew, but for every creature in the galaxy who had ever underestimated humanity. We are the survivors. The ones you thought you could erase. The ones you thought would fall into the abyss. But you were wrong. We will take what is ours. The crew moved in perfect synchronization, despite the growing tension. They didn't fear what was to come. They didn't even fear the unknown presence of the architects. They had learned long ago to fight with no hope. Now, they were fighting for everything they had lost, everything they had been forced to sacrifice. Commander Zern's hands trembled on the bridge of his flagship. The once proud Krellin Empire was falling apart before his eyes. His fleet, his soldiers, his people, they were scattered, defeated by the same force they had thought was gone forever. His voice cracked as he ordered the last remaining ships to stand their ground. Hold them off. We cannot let them reach the core. We must stop them. But even as he shouted, he knew it was futile. The Retribution was unstoppable, and the architects had made their choice. The Krellin fleet, once the mightiest in the galaxy, was now the hunted. The alliance between the Krellins and the Zorith had already begun to crumble. The architects had intervened, not for the Krellins, but for humanity, and the balance of power had shifted irreversibly. Zern's eyes flitted between his tactical displays as ships were losing power. His weapons were offline. Even their communication systems were failing. There was no escape. He had no backup. He had no reinforcements. It was over. Inside the Retribution, the final approach to the core began. The ship passed through a field of defensive satellites, massive ships, and countless obstacles meant to protect the most sacred and secure region in the galaxy. And yet nothing could stop them. The Retribution cut through the defenses with precision, effortlessly bypassing layers of protection that had once seemed invincible. As the warship entered the inner orbit of the core, a new message came through. This time it wasn't from the Krellin or the Zorith. It was from the architects, humanity. You have reached the heart of the galaxy. But understand this, you have only one chance. Take the power, and it is yours. But know that what you take will change everything. The voice was calm, cold even. It held no judgment, only a simple statement of fact. Humanity had arrived, and now they stood on the precipice of a new age. Captain Monroe's eyes flashed. With determination, he understood what this meant. The galaxy would never be the same again. But this was their moment, their chance to shape their future. We take everything, Monroe declared, his voice firm as steel. For too long, we've been forgotten. For too long, we've been treated like nothing. But now, we rise. Back in the command center of the Krellin flagship, Zern could feel the walls closing in. His mind raced as he saw the Retribution approaching its final target, the Galactic Power Center, the place where the greatest empires of the galaxy controlled the flow of resources, politics, and influence. But as the human ship advanced, something else became clear. It wasn't just about power anymore. It was about survival. Humanity wasn't trying to conquer. They were trying to exist, to be recognized, to make their mark in a galaxy that had once forgotten them. In his final moments, Zern realized that humanity wasn't just reclaiming what was theirs. They were rewriting the rules. The Retribution's final approach was met with a sudden surge of energy. The core's defensive systems activated massive energy beams shot toward the warship, lighting up space with their fiery power. But this time, the Retribution did not retreat. It did not falter. Its shields absorbed the blasts, and its weapons fired back, precise, calculated, and without mercy. The power of the core began to flicker. The energy that had once controlled the galaxy was now being redirected, pulled into the Retribution. And the architects watched, silent, as the ship did what they had never expected. It took the power. The final signal was sent across the galaxy. Humanity has returned. And with that, the galaxy would never be the same again. The last remaining Krillin ships, their weapons failing, scattered into the void. The Zorith fleet, too, began to pull back. The galaxy's most powerful empires were broken, scattered, lost. And in their place stood the humans. The Retribution stood at the center of the core, its weapons silent, its engines glowing bright. Hey, this is our galaxy now. The Retribution hovered at the center of the galactic core, its hull gleaming with the raw energy it had absorbed from the heart of the galaxy. The silence that followed was deafening. The final remnants of the once mighty Krellin fleet had fled, their ships crippled and disoriented, scattered like dust in the wind. The Zorith, though hesitant, had backed off, not daring to challenge humanity any longer. The architects, the ancient beings who had watched humanity from the shadows, remained silent. Their intervention had given humanity a chance now. It had given humanity control. Captain Elias Monroe stood in the command center, staring at the holographic display before him. The map of the galaxy now glowed with new lines, paths of influence, power, and resources that humanity could claim. The Retribution was no longer just a warship. It was a symbol of survival, of defiance, of the fury that had once been ignored but was now impossible to ignore. "This is it," Monroe whispered, his voice steady, but filled with an emotion he hadn't felt in years. It was hope, a hope he thought had died with Earth. "We've done it. We've won." The crew stood in quiet reverence, looking out. Through the ship's viewing port at the core, the heart of the galaxy now within their grasp. The once mighty empires, the ones who had crushed their world, had nothing left to stand on. All that was left was humanity and its fury. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the message had spread. The voices of the architects, silent and cryptic, had reverberated through every corner of space. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible. Humanity, the species that had once been wiped out in the Great Galactic War, had returned. Not as slaves. Not as refugees, but as the storm that would shape the future. In the distant halls of the Galactic Council, the remaining leaders gathered. The Krellin High Council, the Zorith Elders, and the few remaining factions that had once ruled the galaxy, all met under one roof. But the room was tense, thick with uncertainty. They had all felt it, the shift in power, the coming storm. Message from the Retribution had been clear. Humanity has returned, and this is their galaxy now. The council sat in silence, their hands trembling as they gripped their datapads. Some were afraid, others were unsure. But one thing was certain: the balance of power had changed forever. Back on the Retribution, the AI hummed quietly, analyzing the shifting dynamics of the galaxy. Humanity now controlled the core. They held the power to reshape the fate of every alien empire in the galaxy. The message, loud and clear, was not just for the Krellins or the Zorith. It was for anyone who had ever thought they could wipe humanity out. The AI's voice rang out across the ship. Humanity stands at the precipice of a new age. But what you choose now will define everything. We hold the power. But the question remains, what will we do with it? Captain Monroe stood still, his mind racing. The galaxy lay at his feet, and the decisions made in the coming days would determine humanity's future. He had seen the horrors that awaited them, the wars, the bloodshed, the constant struggle for survival. But he also knew this: humanity was never meant to be a side player. They were meant to be leaders, to carve their own path in the stars. "We take control," Monroe said, his voice full of resolve. "We build an empire, not through fear, not through violence, but through unity. We've been broken, but no more. The galaxy will bow, but it will bow to humanity's will. We rise, together." Across the galaxy, the effects of the Retribution's victory were already being felt. The Krellans, once the supreme power, were scrambling to reorganize. Their fleets shattered, their empire collapsing under the weight of their failure. Their colonies, now vulnerable, were already in disarray. The Zorith, once a quiet observer, were now faced with the reality that humanity was no longer a distant memory. They had watched the Retribution as it tore through the galaxy with the force of a comet, and they knew they could no longer remain neutral. The rest of the galaxy watched in awe as the great alien empires, so sure of their dominance, now found themselves questioning everything. What did this mean for their future? Could they continue to hold their territories in the face of a humanity reborn, strong and fierce? As the Retribution floated in the core, the power flowing through it, Captain Monroe stepped forward and addressed his crew. His voice was calm, yet filled with the weight of destiny. "This is just the beginning. We've taken the first step, but there's much more to do. We are not conquerors, but we will not be silenced. We will create a galaxy where humanity is not just another race, but a leader of force that will reshape the future." The crew nodded, a sense of purpose filling the air. They had come so far, had been pushed to the edge of extinction, only to return stronger, more determined. And now they would shape the galaxy as they saw fit. The Retribution was no longer just a ship. It was a symbol of hope, a symbol of humanity's will to survive. And with the architects by their side, they would begin to rebuild, to forge alliances, and yes, perhaps to rule. The message of the Retribution spread far and wide, echoing through the stars like a herald of change. Humanity was not just a species of the past, they were the future. Humanity has returned, and we are not going anywhere. The galaxy would never be the same again.